My name is Lily Kiefer, and I will be interviewing Fred Yoder, a Vietnam War veteran. First question is, how did you feel when you first got drafted?
It all happened so fast.
Mm-hmm.
They took me in they said, we're going to Chicago. I lived in the state of Indiana. They said, you're going to Chicago for a physical. And when I got to Chicago, I passed my physical, and they said, you're in the Army now, and I was drafted right then. I rode the train to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and while I'm riding there, I'm trying to ponder what all this is. I have no clothes. I have no shaving stuff. I have no dental hygiene things. And they said, don't worry, you'll get them in the Army. And so we got to Fort Campbell, and we went to where the induction center and said, you're in the Army now.
Do you remember arriving to Vietnam, and what was it like?
Yes, I do remember arriving in Vietnam. It was 1967, September. Left out of Oakland, California. We had a 17-hour flight on a 707.
Wow.
We went from there nonstop to Japan, landed in Tokyo, and from Tokyo we went up to Vietnam. And it's been 50 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So anyhow, we landed at Cam Ranh Bay, and I was so amazed at the beauty of Cam Ranh Bay. It had the white sand, the beautiful aqua blue ocean. I was absolutely blown away at how beautiful it was.
Mm-hmm.
And from there they took me to Pleiku, which is in the Central Highlands, and that's where I was inducted in Vietnam.
So during your service, can you recall times when you were afraid?
Yeah, there were many. In Pleiku, they said, you're taking a patrol out somewhere. I don't know where. They said, take it this coordinates, and we went out. And there was like 12 of us, 12 or 14. And I was one of the older guys, and I was 21. And I was one of the older people there. I had 17-year-olds, I had 18-year-olds. And we walk out and secure a site for whatever reason. It was all a whirlwind. I just got there, and they said, grab your gear, you're on a mission. And I took these newbies out also, which I was a newbie, a new guy. And we got out there, and we set up the perimeter. It was dark, and set up a perimeter, and everybody took turns watching for different directions. And it was this new guy's turn. He was 17 years old, I'll never forget it. His turn to watch. And I was in charge of him, and I said, just watch out here, just if you hear anything, Well, about 5 seconds later, he taps me, and he says, I hear something. And I listened. I knew this from living on a farm. I knew that if you heard the crickets or the bugs chirping, nothing was there. It's when they get quiet that something is there. Yeah. Because something's walking by. It could be an animal, it could be a human, it could be anybody. But something is walking past. They shut up. So I told him, I said, listen to the bugs. Listen to what they're telling you. And he said, okay. 5 minutes later, he wakes me up again. Or he shakes me. Haven't slept yet. And he said, I hear something. I listened to the bugs, I'm straining, and the bugs are still okay. I said, the bugs are still okay. Well, the next time, about 10 minutes later, he shakes me, and he says, I don't hear any bugs. I said, oh, crap.
Oh, no.
So I'm listening, and I'm straining my ears and listening for any kind of sound that I would hear. I heard a twig snap, but it could have been a tiger, it could have been anything, because they had some big animals out there, too.
Yeah.
And I'm listening, and just then, this guy hears another guy behind us, which is a friendly. And he flies up against me, knocks me down, and yells, halt. And that was the first time I was scared. It knocked me down on the ground.
Wow.
And I didn't know what happened at first. So, yeah, I've been scared. But things don't bother me too much.
Not anymore?
Not so much.
What are your strongest memories from your time in the Vietnam War?
I mean, it's chock full. I was there during Tet Offensive in 67, 68, the Christmas, New Year's. I guess maybe there's one thing that sticks in my mind, and I can't never forget it. We would have to cordon off a village, and we would go in and check for Charlie, which was a nickname for the North Vietnamese regulars. And we would go in and check for Charlie. So we would separate, when we'd go in and surround the village, we would separate the men from the women. And I remember seeing this young man who was mentally retarded. And I kept watching him because I knew from experience, I had a nephew that was that way, that they were unpredictable because they were mentally challenged.
Yeah.
So he liked his mom, and he wanted to be with his mom, but he was an adult man, so they put him with the men. And I kept watching him, and he was becoming more agitated, and he's moving around. And all of a sudden, he just starts screaming and bolts for his mom.
Oh, no.
And about 50 guns went on him just like that, and I screamed at the top of my voice, "Don't shoot!" And they held their fire. And then they said, "Why?" And I said, "Because he's mentally challenged."
Oh, wow.
So that was a...
That's incredible. Wow. Okay, last question. What lessons did you learn from this time in your life?
Wow. It shaped who I am today. Probably one thing I remember, or would have said that I learned the most from, is I had nothing against the Vietnamese people, personally. But I'm also an American, and I'm also took an oath to protect my country. And if my country said do this, I did it without question. However, I sat and I looked many times at when there was a body count or something like that, and I looked at it and I said, different place, different time, I'd have a beer with that guy.